We good? I think we're good. All right, terrific. Hi, everyone. I'm Scott. I'm with C14G. Oh, I always do that. I look at the camera. I'm with C14G. This is me starting a new podcast, video log, vlog, whatever you want to call it, to just go over security news and things that have been going on in the cybersecurity industry. I've got a few articles here I'm going to show you, as you can see on the screen. And from there, we're going to realize we had the wrong microphone, and now we're going to adjust it. Sorry, everybody. Please hold. I don't think I could pause, so bear with me here. Properties. We got the right one. So, okay, but now we got to, I'm in Linux, so it gets mad at me once in a while. Sorry. And of course that happened. And Control T, there we go. You might see something pop up on your end. Why not? Input devices, let's go to the microphone. That's not the right port, but it thinks it is. Okay, I guess this is our winner. Sorry if it's loud, or not loud enough, I guess, for that matter. Doesn't seem to be spiking. I guess that's a good thing, or you can all hardly hear me at all. Who knows anymore? So we'll go back here. The volume is set correctly. It doesn't seem to get too high, so I'm going to assume you can hear me. I don't want to adjust it because it's going to mess with your settings, especially if you have headphones on. So if I did interfere with you, sorry. So anyways, I wanted to go over basically some articles that have popped up in the past few weeks that I've seen. We're going to start off with, again, this is cybersecurity news. These are going to be articles. I'm going to discuss things that the industry has a tendency to avoid. Like they don't, if somebody gets caught, a lot of companies don't want to tell you, or the vague wording a lot of these articles put in place so there's no accountability. We're going to go over lawsuits. I'll put a timeline the best I can inside the description, and I will share all these links in the description after it's already been recorded. So that being said, I don't know if I have YouTube chat open. I do have it. You do have to be a subscriber, so if you want to subscribe, that would be appreciated. There is a 3-second delay, so that way you can't spam it. I'm debating if I'm going to keep that or not, but anyways, here we go. Wow, I can't really even see both of everything I wanted to talk about, so we're going to assume it's good to go. I think it's yelling at me. Warning, please check your video resolution. The current resolution is 920 by 1088, which is non-optimal. Oh, is it 1088? We'll go over here again. Sorry. I thought I was good to go, but apparently not. Settings. Output is 1920 by 1080. I don't know why it's set to 1088. That is stupid, but okay. I don't know where it got it from. I don't know why it's set there. It is what it is. Yeah, everything in OBS says it's 1080, so that's on you, YouTube. Sorry, I don't know why the extra 8 pixels are there. Well, 8. Yeah, good enough. So anyways, here in the state of Florida, it says state breached by unemployment system. The state says data breach in unemployment system impacts thousands. Yeah, no kidding. So Florida Department of Economic Opportunity confirmed with Wink News Friday claimant accounts were breached during potentially fraudulent activity. Potentially. We don't want to say it's fraudulent because we don't want a lawsuit. It's potentially fraudulent activity within the Connect unemployment system. According to Who Cares, information contained in the claimant may have been accessed. This is what may have been stolen. Yeah, because keyword there is, oops, I still have the highlighting tool on, sorry. Oop, we're going to turn off the highlighting tool after we realized we hit the wrong thing. No, 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 no. Okay. Social security numbers, driver's licenses, and this isn't the last 4. They don't really tell you, but if they don't tell you, I'm going to assume it's the last 4. I'm sorry, I'm going to assume it's the whole thing. social security number, driver's license number, bank account numbers, claim information, just what I want. I want whoever has this database to know what my unemployment pay is or whatever system the state's paying out for me. And other personal details, such as your address, your phone number, and your date of birth. You know, everything you need except for your mother's maiden name to go into access my account. But what we don't know, and one thing I can tell you from the many companies that I've worked with that have had ransomware over the years that I've gotten involved with, is they typically don't know. They have no idea what's missing. They don't. It goes months and months and months before. I mean, a lot of these companies are probably hacked right now, and they have no idea that one, someone is in their system, two, how that person's in their system, three, how to get that person out of their system, and four, what to do if that person's been there for months, anyways, right? In a lot of states, there's a law. Back in Wisconsin, there was a law. We lost a backup tape. I think I mentioned this in one of my other videos. One of our employees lost a backup tape that contained personal information on it or private information. PII, it's personal identifiable information. So to the state of Wisconsin, you have to notify, I think it was all of your clients within the last 7 years, right? Well, what justifies as a client, right? Is that just somebody that sent you an email? Is it somebody that wrote you a check? Is it somebody that you have in the system? Like what? It really wasn't set in stone because things are so vague. So I was asked by my company, or the company that I worked for at the time, sorry, to bury it or just not mention it. What I recommend in a scenario like that is if you are asked to do this by a company, whether you're a contractor or a full-time employee or just a person, you write a cover your ass letter that says that you requested me to not bring this up legally. So, you know, that, and have them sign it before you say or do anything, right? So that's what I did. They asked me to hide it, and I said, I'll gladly hide it once you sign this letter saying that you asked me to hide it, and this was all your doing, and I objected to it. They never signed it, but at that time, the federal government got involved, and it was a whole mess from there. So, yeah, a lot of these companies don't, I mean, they're just assume that there's no bad actors, right? A bad actor being somebody that can get into your system. If you have an internet connection, regardless if you're a business or if you're a person, your system is wide open. Sure, there's general stopgaps put in place by maybe the modem firewall. They might block port 25 outbound, which is used for email, but there's usually just a bridge connection, right? It's a fat open wide pipe to yours, and any CVE or any security vulnerability that you have unpatched is free reign, right? So, and we see those all the time. If you pay attention to security articles, you'll see a lot of companies didn't patch this, they didn't fix that because they didn't want the downtime, they didn't want to do whatever, right? If we look back to Experian, I think it was, I might have the wrong credit company. There are three. It could be TransUnion, Experian, or I don't remember the other one, but I think it was Experian. They got caught. They leaked out all this information. As a legal binding, they had to provide credit monitoring for everybody, and they spent over $1 billion. It's on my web. It's on c14g.com. I give the example there. They spent like either 1.8 or 10.8 billion dollars. Actually, let's see if I can show it to you. But yeah, the point being, you know, it costs a lot of money to put security standards in place. And a lot of the times it's not convenient, right? They've already concluded that even if you use passwords cost a employer, it's like $100 an hour, or whatever. I forgot what the exact value is, but it's like $100 an hour, based on, web page is loading slow here because I'm streaming at the same time, so I apologize. Based on the amount of work that it takes to support people with passwords, right? So now we have multi-factor authentication, which is, you know, the annoying, I can't stand it, but it's the industry, right? So every time I sign into Google, I have to go find my cell phone, and then I have to go prove it, right? Which makes the case for the Apple Watch. I would never buy an Apple product. Which makes the case, real quick there, I did buy Apple once, and I'll never do it again. that's that's probably the best feature of a smartwatch. I don't have to go to the other room where I left my phone because I'm not tied to it. There's more important things in life, and I could just improve it on my watch, right? I have a generic smartwatch now. It looks like an iPhone or iWatch ripoff, but it doesn't offer the Play Store, so I can't install the Google Authenticator. But if we go here, I think under either managed security, you would think you would know your own website well enough. You could find out. I listed articles as to why you would. I was giving examples of why you'd want managed security, which is a product that we offer. We take the edge part out of it. We put a firewall in place. We install a ton of monitoring tools and prevention tools, right? So if an end user clicks on an email that opens up a bad link, we offer something called DNS protection, which is done by DNS Watch is the product name. It's built into our managed security solution. But DNS Watch will run every single DNS entry you click on will run against a nation secure database that's updated live all the time. And if the site that somebody's trying to go to is bad, it'll get blocked right away. And the end user will get a message saying that the site you tried to go to is bad, right? That's not going to protect every single instance, but it definitely helps protect somebody that clicks on an email that's been floating around that has a link to a URL because they didn't follow the best practices and hovering over a link or whatever those standard practices a company should be putting in place. So I might have gotten the wrong. I sure did. Where did I put that? Why choose us? That's where it is. So as we wait for my lovely, well, I have no drop frames, so that's a good thing. I'm just looking at the statistics while this loads here. But I wanted to point out, there's links here. The average payout cost of a ransomware, number 3, has oil pipeline hospitals. Number 4 has Target. There it is. Equifax pays $1.4 billion after a data breach that leaked Social Security numbers, right? This just leaked Social Security numbers, right? Now, obviously, this is a nationwide, if not worldwide service. I don't know if Equifax is international. So their situation is going to be a little bit worse, but it still affected 143 million people, right? If we look at how many people, let's see, the adult population in Florida. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot I turned off auto search. You have to actually use the search feature, which is something I prefer. As a network engineer, you don't want DNS forwarding to always to be in your favor. You want to see if it's working, right? So there's 16 million adults, give or take, who knows how many, in Florida as of 2021, right? So let's go back to the state. We don't know how many people are on unemployment or how many people are using the state system, but let's just say it's a 16th of that, 1 million people. I don't really know. They now have just their social security numbers, their driver's license number, the bank account numbers, claim information, and other personal details such as address, phone numbers, and date of birth. That's way more than the Experian case. Less people, but way more data. And if it costs Experian 1.4 billion, I guarantee you it's going to be that much somewhere else too, right? So I'm going to click on my link here, which takes you to the article, which gives you all the details. Again, I'll have this link just to be, well, you can find this one on my webpage. It's under on our webpage, mine. It's under number 4, reduce your legal risk. Under why choose us. Man, this whole fiber internet thing isn't doing so good. How good is a gig internet up and down if the pages take a while to load? I blame you, streaming. Oh, streaming's mad at me. I can see it doing its circle thing. Hopefully it catches up. Oh, you know what I didn't do though? Don't hate me for this. I'm going to do this now. The video capture, I think I had to turn on autofocus. So if I've been a little blurry, sorry, I'm going to change that now. I typically don't like autofocus, but sometimes it just misses altogether. So I try to do it. And of course, I'm under the wrong menu settings. So let's go to video capture and then settings. There we go. Oh, autofocus is on, and now it just decided to start autofocusing. Terrific. So if I was autofocused, that should be fixed now. I'm looking on my YouTube stream, and I'm pretty blurry. I think maybe it's compressing it to hit it within 1080, but for one reason or another, I'm blurry. But oh well, sorry. I don't know why the compression algorithm is so bad. But anyways, yeah. So this is again the Equifax breach. I'm probably going to reference this again because I think it's just insane how much money Equifax had to spend. Looks like they've changed the formatting of this a little, but the crisis began on April 26th, and the month of vulnerability, dubbed Yada Yada Yada, was discovered in Apache, whatever you want to call it, which is a web-based service. And then here's what they had to do to go through it. There it is, right there. 1.4 billion, the amount Equifax has spent on upgrading its security in the wake of the incident, right? So 43 million people is what they had to tell. $125, the most you can expect to get in compensation, right? So $125, great. Somebody that has my information stole way more than $125. And this hassle is gigantic. It's not just a hassle to the consumer. Visa and all the banks have to pay for it. The governments involved have to hold their accountability for it. So there's a lot that goes on to this. So this is just the state unemployment system. And again, going back to everything that was stolen, I tried to highlight all the important parts before that. So this activity might have occurred, keyword might have occurred between April 27th and July 16th. April, May, June, July, right? So it's actually 3.5 months because it was pretty much the end of April. They went 3.5 months and they still can't determine when that happened. They just know that it did happen. What that usually means on the security engineers level is they found out how they were getting in and they fixed that one thing about how they were getting in. Most of the time that I've had to work with ransomware, they were in via RDP. I think I've mentioned this, and I will continue to mention this. There is no reason under any circumstance you should have 3389 or any other RDP lookalike port. I look at live firewall traffic, and they try 3390, which is 3389 plus 1. They try 3388, which is -1. They try 3399. They try all these easy tactics that a lot of security people will try to, and I shouldn't even say security people because a security person would never do that. You would instead use a VPN. There's no other solution. Just use a VPN. If a line of business app needs access to a system on the other side of that VPN, but they don't have the software to do it, then you could put a VPN concentrator in place and start a branch office connection. That's how I would do it anyways. Or you can use some other method if you determine one better. But if you did it the branch office VPN method, the machine at the other end wouldn't have any idea about a VPN. It's just going to send traffic, and routing is going to take over from there. So again, I wanted to point that out, right? So this article, it took them 3 months, right here, right? It discovered July 16th, right? And right here, this activity may have occurred between April 27th and July 16th. They don't know if it did, but it may have. Key words there. And then DEO, according to DEO, I don't even know what DEO is. I probably skipped over that. Department of Economic Opportunity says there is no evidence of any other unauthorized access and no indication of related malicious activity on the department's internal networks. What does that mean? Well, we don't see anything. That doesn't mean it's not there. We just don't see it. So there's no evidence of it. Again, if it's been floating around for 3.5 months with no evidence, nobody knew it was there, that's not a good sign, right? It sounds nice, but you have to learn to read between the lines. That's a legal mumbo jumbo is what that is. In response, because it is a state-run entity, they have legal bindings behind it, and they're actually held accountable mainly because of the federal government and the funding that goes attached to it, right? So they locked account targets by this activity. So if somebody came in with an old employee account, they've locked that one account. They've improved PIN security controls. More than likely, you can't have repeating numbers. They probably turned on a PIN expiration, and they probably made it so it can't be like your birthday or something like that, right? Who knows? I'm just guessing. Enhanced network security controls. Network security controls is such a vague term. What does that mean? Does that mean you put a lock on the door with the switches? That's an enhanced security control. Does that mean you've locked out, you've done MAC port management, so you only devices that are authorized to be connected to a switch are connected? I doubt it, because that's a huge undertaking. The amount of effort and the amount of people you have to hire to do that is going to take way more than the 4 months you've known that this was there, right? So I think that's just a bullet point, and enhanced network security controls could be anything. It could be passwords no longer expiring, or passwords set to expiring. It could be usernames can't contain, something. Who knows? Who knows what that is? There's so many vague terms there. They've notified the impacted claimants. Well, that's required by law. And how did they notify them? Because in Wisconsin, when this happened to me, the company that I was working for was required to notify them via postage. A physical letter had to go out to, it was hundreds of thousands of people, right? They had to pay a lot of money. Instead, they ended up getting closed. The company no longer operated, so they never ended up sending that. Continuing, they notified the Department of Legal Affairs, Department of Managed Services, included the Division of State Technology, and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. They're just letting them know, just in case they want to say, well, we did our due diligence after it happened, instead of doing the due diligence beforehand. But after it happened, we wanted to cover our butts, right? They reported impacted accounts to 3 U.S. crediting reporting agencies. So there you go, TransUnion, Experian, and the one I always forget, that one. Purchased a yearly subscription of identity protection services for affected claimants. So again, that's nice. But if it's already stolen, or if somebody was in the middle of getting rent or whatever the case may be, right? So if you remember, you had the opportunity to lock your credit report. So if anybody pulled your credit, it wouldn't work, or that could be something that's a security measure. My dad has that done, but every time he applies for something that pulls your credit, he gets denied because he has to get in contact with them to unlock it. Nobody really thought about the long-term part of that. So the nice thing is they did do something. It's all very vague, and in my opinion, not even close to enough. This all should have been done beforehand. And if we talk about it later on in this episode, it's going to be a long one, probably about an hour is my guess, considering I'm at 20 minutes already. Anyways, so continuing, we're going to talk about the law. Here's another one. Law firm to the Fortune 500 breached with ransomware. So a law firm that represents a ton of Fortune 500 companies was breached. When it comes to law firms, they hold a lot of private information that nobody wants, such as maybe there's a sex scandal, maybe there's a settlement, maybe there's negligence, maybe there's bad actors inside the company. There's a ton, maybe there's stockholder information. They have a tendency to hold a lot of that stuff, and it's usually protected by, attorney-client privileges. But if the attorney gets hacked and ransomware, who's going to do what now, right? So I'm waiting to see. The stream did pick up. Oh, no. Did the stream? Yeah, okay, the stream did pick up. Sorry, delayed. Anyways, I wanted to talk about it again. I've highlighted areas: deep-pocketed clients, consumers and suppliers could be in the attacker's net for potential PII, personal identifiable information. I always want to say personable. Sorry, personal identifiable information. Exposure from an A-list clientele such as Apple, Boeing, and IBM. IBM probably doesn't want to be on that list. IBM is known for their security. They have a terrific security mainframe. Their security is built into the chip. It's been that way for decades, and it will continue to be that way. It is one of the most secure systems you can use. Unfortunately, if you're using just a SQL database or some other exchange to get that information off of there, you've ruined that security, because something that has less security is now able to access something that's supposed to be secure, right? That's how security works. I can have the biggest, most locked down system in the world, but if I allow one machine in for a line of business app, that one machine has access to stuff it shouldn't. I've just negated all that security, because that one machine is now the weakest spot in my entire network. Doesn't matter how much security I have in place, it's as strong as the machine that I have there. So let's say I have a line of business app that only runs on Windows XP that connects to a database, a DB2 database or whatever, AS400 or mainframe database, IBM ZOS mainframe database that is out there. If I'm stuck on Windows XP and it's connecting directly to a database, all that security means nothing because I've got Windows XP, it's unpatched bazillion times over again. That's my own fault. Might as well just throw all the other security out the window. My opinion. That's being dramatic, of course. Anyway, it's U.S. law firm to a Disney array of huge companies said that intruders may have groped their data. It was hit with a ransomware in February. It is now suffering a data breach. The reason I pointed out February, this was reported on in July. So February, March, April, May, June, July. 7 months, 6 months, 6 months. Sorry, I don't know why I said 7. 6 months of unknown, right? So again, we're at the same problem. A lot of these companies just believe that, oh, I hired the right people. No, you hired somebody that does Windows Server administration. You didn't hire somebody that does Internet Edge security, somebody that does network security, somebody that does phone security. You didn't hire those people. You hired one network administrator and you asked them to do more than they're supposed to be doing, right? That's what happens in a lot of companies. They expect too much because they don't know what they're talking about and they don't want to pay the payroll, right? Because payroll is a big part of companies, right? People want profit. They don't want to spend it to protect their company. And every one of these companies thinks that they're immune to being targeted until they're targeted, right? So again, a long while ago when I was working with companies, we had probably 10 small under 200 employees, under 100 employees in some situations. They were hit with ransomware. Those people didn't think they were going to get affected. I mean, it destroyed their profitability. It destroyed everything. They were down for 2 weeks at a time. There was nobody doing any work. They still had to pay their employees. A lot of employees didn't know what to do. A lot of customers were upset. They went to other customers. It's a big deal. Nobody's immune to it. I actually, and I've mentioned in other videos, they were open because they had port 3389, which is the UDP, which is the RDP port open for that. So again, there's no need for it. There's no exceptions to it. It just has to be done whether you like it or not, right? So the list here of some of this law firm is Apple, Boeing, British Airways, Chrysler, ExxonMobil, Fisher Price, Ford, Honda, IBM, Jaguar, Monsanto, Toyota, and U.S. Airways, to name just a few, right? So who knows what was taken? I'm sure they're going to tell us, right? So we're going to look at first the attacker's lockup. Yeah, so how does it happen? There's a whole lot of ransomware organizations that like to do the double extortion attack, and I still have that stupid thing up. Double extortion attack. First, the attackers lock up their system, right? Prevent you with the ransomware paywall thing that pops up on your screen. And then they threaten to leak the compromised data or use it for a future spam attack if the ransomware demands aren't met. Just locking up the system really doesn't, okay, I'll just restore it and be done with it. But now they say if you don't give us what we want, even if you restore it, pay it or we're going to leak your data on the dark web. And the dark web is a non-indexable, when I say indexable, Google, Bing, all the search engines, they go out and they scrape the internet. If you create something on Wix.com or Squarespace.com, that's all indexed. If you use search engine optimization, SEO, that's indexed. Just about most of the internet is indexed, but the things that aren't indexed, which is search indexed, is part of the dark web. You would have to know specifically how to get to it. You would typically get to it via an IP address only, because unfortunately, if you have a domain name, most of the time, unless you find a bad actor in domain hosting, those are also indexed, right? So you can get on there. That information's out there. It's not just a web page. You connect to it via SSH or bulletin boards, or they're still around, or user groups or whatever, right? So that information is out there. So it does get leaked. You can find it if you know what you're looking for. So going to the next area that I highlighted, it discusses right here that guests got highlighted as well, but you'll notice, well, you can't see my tabs, but it's the next article we're going to talk about is what happened with guests. So it's going to be a tough one for Campbell if it turns out to be REvil, or however you want to call it, REvil. I just call it REvil. This is a notorious, it's not really notorious, but a hacker group or a ransomware group. Given the game, but yeah. So the point I wanted to make out to is a lot of these people have a tendency to be shut down, right? So ReEvil is one of them. I think there's another one called DarkSide. Those servers, they're gone, right? So if your company gets hit by one of these ReEvil or DarkSide, and you just decide, you know what, I don't have time, my backups, it's my own fault. Well, we didn't test the backups on a quarterly basis like we should have. So we're just going to pay the ransom. And trust me, companies do this all the time because it's about production and profitability and keeping your company operating, right? So it's much faster to pay at the time a couple hundred, maybe a couple $1,000 to get your data back. But if the server that you need to pay or the group that you need to pay to is no longer operating, how are you supposed to get the decryption key? So that's what happens when you pay, right? You're paying to get your data back. They give you a decryption key, and they give you a program that runs a built-in decryptor service, which is built into Windows or whatever your operating system is, and it decrypts it for you, right? So now all your stuff is back. It takes a long time because most of the time there's a network file share that is attached, that is attacked, that affects the whole company in that process. So you got to do it there. And then to make matters even worse, when you pay for this, I know because the companies I've had to work with the ransomware people with, you have to hope that they don't hack it again. I eventually found somebody. Uh, at the time, we pretended one of the groups that was attacked. We pretended that we were a children's hospital, and then there's so to that ransomware hacker there was an ethical standard. So he eventually gave me some pretty good information saying that hey, if you use RDP, we're getting in. Even if you patch it, we've already opened up another hole. But they're definitely. He said even if you pay me, I'm gonna get right back in there and do it again in a month because I already know you pay, right? So even if and this happened to my neighbor or somebody I don't want to give out too much information, but this happened to somebody that I know where they got this was on a personal level. They got their identity stolen because of whatever, and that puts him or her on a list for other hackers and ransomware people to know that hey, these people pay, right? This happens in business all the time, right? So if I know that IBM's going to pay, and I'm just using them as an example, I'm going to use IBM in the future as well because they're willing to pay, right? So, yeah, the point I wanted to point out here is that the ReEvil, given that the gang server slipped offline last week, leaving the victim stuck mid-negotiation without a way to pay ransom or get the decryption key to unlock their files and restart their business. Ditto for DarkSide, its servers went shut down in May. Campbell's ensuing investigation hasn't yet determined if the unauthorized threat actors got specific information. It's been 6 months, and you have not determined what information that they were able to obtain. And that's typically because it costs a lot of time, it costs a lot of money to put security in place. Does your system in its current state know when somebody reads a file on your network server or on your network file server? Can they tell when somebody opened that file or closed that file or edited that file? All these things are, you can enable them right out of the box with Windows tools, right? If you're using a Windows file share, which a lot of people are, unfortunately. This is all, you can turn all that on, but you better have a lot of disk space because every time somebody opens a folder, clicks on a file, right clicks on a file, deletes a file, closes a file, all that gets written to logs. You should absolutely have this enabled. If you are a manager and you're looking at this, I would say I need proof from my security team, or if you don't have a security team, your IT people, that you actually do have file logging enabled. Get proof of it. Get a report. Get and follow it up within 2 weeks at random or a week later just to verify that it's still working. Because IT people, while they shouldn't, because it makes honest IT people look bad, they have a tendency to just go get a report because they think the person that's looking at it doesn't know what they're looking at it. You can use Gartner, you can use third parties if you're willing to pay for them to verify that the data that they're giving you is legitimate. If you wanted to send it to me, go ahead. You can contact us on c14g.com. I can look at the report. I'll tell you if it looks legitimate or not, but I don't hold any legal binding to that. That's just me using my experience in the field. So, yeah. And that was what I wanted to point out. Again, though, but the law firm does know that they could have accessed, they could have, we don't really know, a treasure trove of sensitive, personally identifiable information. It is personally, sorry, belonging to certain individuals, whatever that means. They even quoted themselves. Could that be 1 people? Is it 1 million people? Is all of our clients? Who was affected by this? Do you think this law firm is going to offer this information up to let them know? No, they're going to keep quiet because that's legally their best choice, right? So again, here's what they could have gotten: names, dates, date of birth, driver's license, state identification numbers, financial account information, whatever that means, social security numbers, passport numbers, payment card information, PCI compliance or PCII or PCCI. I just call it PCI compliance. Those are requirements that if you take a credit card transaction and you store that information on your systems, there are a host of requirements so you aren't held accountable. So let's say I take your financial information. I would never store identifiable or a credit card information on site. I would allow a company that focuses just on that to handle that because 1, it takes the legality off my chest, and 2, I don't want the lawsuit, right? But if Visa comes back and says, sorry, you're not PCI compliant, or MasterCard or Discovery or Amex or whatever, we're not paying for this fraudulent activity. Your company is paying for this fraudulent activity on your customers because we told you you had to be PCI compliant. You're not PCI compliant. That onus is no longer on us. That legally falls on you. Enjoy the lawsuit, right? So every company is trying to pass the buck off, right? So if you are accepting credit cards, the first thing you should do, if you're a manager, talk to your accounts payable department or your accounting department. Determine, are we storing are we storing any credit card information on file in our database, on our file shares, right? And if they say no, because they're likely going to say I don't know or no, ask them to say, well, how do I know if somebody paid for whatever PO, and how can I tell that that's done? And if they hop on a file share and they hop to go figure out how they paid on your file share, you're storing personally identifiable information for somebody's credit card. You're no longer PCI compliant. PCI compliance has a ton of information. Everything has to be encrypted. You have to have passwords set to expire, I think, at 90 or 120 days. Your passwords have to be a certain length. There's a ton of things that PCI does to make sure that if you lose backup tape, for instance, there's no raw credit card data out there, right? So these systems are put in place for a reason. These companies just think that they're going to get away with it as long as they can without ever having to worry about it, right? So again, this example right here about the law firm for the Fortune 500 companies, this is just a nightmare. They could have credit card numbers, they could have your mother's maiden name, they could have your first wife's payout, or your adopted child's real name, or real birth mother. Who knows, right? There's so much information that a law firm can hold, right? So why is ransomware so successful? One recent survey from storage provider Cloudian found that 49% of those who experienced attacks had perimeter defenses in place at the time, but ransomware still penetrated. Perimeter defenses in place. Do you have antivirus? That's a perimeter defense. Do you have a locking screen? That's a perimeter defense. Do you have a door lock to get into the building? That's a perimeter defense. So that's just a sticking point that's way too vague to say anyone could get hacked. Well, it's true, anyone can get hacked. That is certainly possible. But there are certain things. If I leave my door open with a sign that says "Steal my TV" in the front of my house, that's my own fault. I mean, like, sure, it might not happen, but it's telling you, hey, someone's going to come in. If you have a firewall that has 3389, the RDP port open that I mentioned a bunch of times, that's constantly getting scanned, and somebody can find your external IP address by going to your website or whatever your line of business server is. If you're hosting your own, you're pretty much saying, come on in. The water's warm. We haven't patched our systems, I think. I couldn't really tell you because we don't have reporting on it, and Microsoft's solution is no fun, but we don't want to spend money on another product because we didn't want to have to pay the licensing fee or the support fee or whatever the case may be. Okay, are you willing to sacrifice your entire company? Are you willing to sacrifice one of my favorite sayings? Are you willing to sacrifice your job on it? Because more than likely, if you get, excuse me, if an operations manager or a security information officer gets in here, they're gonna be the first ones to go. We counted on you. You didn't do what we needed. Bye bye. In fact, some companies will put this onus, legal onus, on you. You put our security at risk. Man, that would be such a nightmare. Anyways, going on to the next line, using that, we have perimeter defenses in place. Now they're saying the business has had to plug the holes with encryption and storage that can't be tinkered with. Yeah, encryption is a normal part of life. It's not going to go anywhere. But what you don't want is people that know how to encrypt, that have access to things they shouldn't, that are going to encrypt it and hold the keys, right? That's exactly what ransomware is. They got into your system, they know how to encrypt, so they're going to, or they have access to a program that knows how to encrypt. They're going to encrypt it with a randomized key. They're going to store that randomized key, and now this information is mine until you pay up. That is ransomware. That's not going anywhere. It's only going to get worse. A lot of these companies aren't going to want to continue to pay. So I'll go to the next one. I'm going to have to probably edit this timeline a little bit here because I'm apparently not doing a very good job, right? So might be too long, but again, these things are everywhere. A guest announces breach social security numbers, financial data after DarkSide ransomware. You know what? Given how long these are, I'm gonna pretty much. I still have to edit and figure out what this is going to be. This is probably too long. This information just keeps going on and on and on. The one thing I did want to point out is that the Department of Homeland Security is now put a law in place that says if you are critical to the operation of us, you've got to put these standard security practices in place. So I'll discuss with that. The goal here is to do this every 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, every Wednesday. I'm trying to limit it to an hour. I'm coming up on an hour. I think I've been about 40 minutes. Yeah, 38 minutes and yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, let me go to my notes here because now we have, so we went through the ransomware news. There are lawsuits coming. I'll discuss that more in detail next week. Ransomware unknowns. Discuss, yeah, how long can it go before your company? Would you know if somebody had access to your database that they shouldn't? Would you know if somebody was in through RDP port that they shouldn't? What security practices do you have in place to know the amount of blocks you have? I mean, these are all things that we offer to our clients, right? So we offer DNS protection with DNS Watch. We offer multi-factor authentication. We offer VPN concentrators or branch office VPNs. We offer remote work. We offer reporting that makes sense. It's not too confusing. We offer quarterly reviews of the security practices, what's been done, the things to look out for, the things that you should move forward with, like deep packet inspection is, typically. So what deep packet inspection is, if you go to a website, we also offer, speaking of which, proxy blocking. So if you're at work, you don't want people using company resources to visit Facebook. YouTube is almost impossible to block, but you can kind of if you want to. But I think a bunch of reporting has shown companies that block YouTube, the production actually goes down because there's a lot of people that go to YouTube to find resources. But the point being, because I don't want to get too long, we're coming up on 45 minutes. Most of the systems, there are tools in place. Your company has to spend money if they want to protect themselves. There is no way around it. Period. You have to spend the right money. You have to hire the right staff, and you can't stretch your IT team so far that they think they're doing the right job, but they can't guarantee you. I wouldn't put my job on it, right? So that's a pretty common factor I've seen throughout the industry in my professional experiences. Companies don't want to spend the money and they don't want to hire the staff, which is kind of the same thing. Now with a shortage of IT people who want to work remotely, most of everything I do can be done remotely. I can manage a firewall remotely. I can enable all the security features remotely. I could prevent if an end user clicks on a URL, that can all be done remotely, so they can't go to a bad URL, they can't download a virus, or if they try, it'll get stopped. That can be all done without the workstation's side at all, right? So obviously, you still need uh, a plethora of tools to protect your environment, but there's a lot of back end security that companies just don't want to do or don't do, and unfortunately, this is why we're seeing ransomware pay off in the rate it is now. Why do these things keep happening? This is me taking notes to myself. Lack of competent employees and management. Like I mentioned, you don't have the right tools in place with the right staff. I'll probably say that every time because you can't take a Microsoft Active Directory guy and expect him to know how to secure your database. You can't take your database guy and expect them to be able to replicate it offsite and verify it runs because they're not. Well, they might be able to, but they're not RPO and they're not disaster recovery specialists. There are so many specialists in the field that you are and you should by all means spend the money. If you are running on a one person shop and you need help moving, we do business systems analyst consultation as well, so we can give you a game plan. We can look at your current running environment, run a scan on your external and internal, providing you give us the access to run it internally. And we can come back with a game plan for the next 2 quarters or 4 quarters, whatever you want to do. But realize, one, you're going to have to pay money for our services, duh. And 2, you're going to have to pay money to actually get to where you need to be, not to where you are currently, right? So, but the first thing you should probably do is verify that you are in a safe spot. Your company is doing file logging or doing security logging. And you can tell when something happens. When the database goes down, you have SNMP monitoring. Your customers are affected by this, that, and the other thing, right? There's just a host of tools and solutions you can do to put in place. We can help you if that's something you want. Also, ask yourself, what is the most important thing in your business to generate money, right? Power would be probably the number one thing. If you ask people, I like asking this question because, okay, beyond power, what's the first thing you need? People will say your servers. Okay, how are the servers going to communicate if there's no network, right? A network is literally the second most important thing you need. And when I say network, I just don't mean your internet connection. I mean everything that's connected for your virtual servers, your virtual switching, your hosts, your hypervisors, same thing. The word has just left my brain. Your cluster, right? Your cluster replication. There's a lot that goes into networking, and it's unfortunately because it's not really talked about. It's usually the forgotten child. People just assume networking is going to be there. Well, it's not. If your server's up and running, that doesn't mean that it can communicate with the rest of your company, right? So ask yourself, what's the most important thing? What about Wi-Fi? If your company has Wi-Fi, or do you have a disaster recovery plan? Because, oh boy, should you have one. And be forewarned, back in my 20s, I had to make a disaster recovery plan for a company, which included me coming up with a price. And at the time, this was, 2002 to 2004, somewhere in there, the pricing for that stuff. The quicker you need to be up and running, the higher it's going to get by a large sum, right? So if you need to be up and operational the next day, it's going to be way more expensive than 2 days. If you need to be up and operational within 6 hours, you're gonna be spending well over $1 million to get that system back up and running, right? There's a lot of things that go into place to be highly available and redundant, right? In a cluster, or whether you're in a stacked environment for switching, there's a ton of things in there. Also, if you don't have a DMZ environment, what do I mean by DMZ? Anything that is on your server that needs to go to the outside. So let's say you host a web server. Let's say you host a line of business application through a web page that allows your customers to connect and look at mapping for whatever, right? Well, that server, because it's on the outside, because it's showing to the outside, should technically be on its own DMZ environment. And what do I mean by its own DMZ environment? It should have its own dedicated DMZ switches, which are highly available as well. Its own dedicated DMZ firewall. If you can, most of the time you don't need to. If your firewall's big enough, you can just pipe it out that way. But you need to segregate publicly available, accessible systems from internally accessible systems. They should have their own different network architecture. They should have their own different subnet. They should have their own different security standards. All of those things, that's what a true DMZ is, right? Very rarely do companies spend that kind of money. That's usually something you only see on the enterprise level because it is so expensive. But as White Voice corrects, that is something you absolutely want to do to make sure that you're moving your company forward in the right direction. So let me see if there's any other points here. Are you monitoring via SNMP or some other version of monitoring? SolarWinds has one. PRTG, which is I'm a big fan of, has one. If you're on Linux, there's other solutions out there. We use Zabbix. That's one that's out there. Typically, a lot of companies are monitoring, and you have the right processes in place. Oh my God, I cannot stress how many times operational managers don't have the right processes in place. That's what an operations manager, depending on your role or how you label it, but if you're an operations manager, an operation should have a process, and there should be a penalty if there is no process. Raises should be based on process. If you can't put metrics in place to prove that employees are or are not doing their job, then why would employees use the systems that you put in place? I've successfully turned a company from failing to profitable, and we switched almost every single system that we had, and this was systems they were all used to. The documentation system, the password system, the CRM system, everything was used. Everything eventually moved over, but I showed it. You have to practice what you preach, right? So I constantly used our documentation system. Whenever somebody had well, how do I do this? I wouldn't just send them an email. I would go to our documentation system, write up a documentation, and I would give them the link. And then they would say, oh, well, I noticed something's wrong in it with it. Okay, I'd say, go ahead. Here's your access to go change it. Please put a screenshot in and do it yourself. Always use screenshots. Fantastic product for that is IT Glue. It's owned by Kaseya. Kaseya's kind of gotten in some bad news recently, but that wasn't part of theirs. IT Glue is one of the best products I've ever used. It's geared towards the MSP environment, but even in a single business setting, 200 employees or whatever that case may be, it offers a ton of value. It's worth every single penny. But it is limited to your license based on the amount of people that can change things, right? So if you have 10 users and 5 of those users need to change things and the other 5 need to read things only, read-only mode, that's going to change your pricing. So again, I would look into that. So I have some work to do to figure out. There's way too much information that I wanted to get across in this hour. I'm a little over 45 minutes now, but I did want to get all this information in and out, make it a little better. I am always looking to collaborate with people if they want to discuss what they're seeing, or if we want to go back and forth in a virtual mindset or some studio. I think it would be beneficial, but I'm looking to, if you have any recommendations or you have any thoughts about how I can make this better and easier or funner, that's not a word, also more fun, let us know. Please put in the comments. I'm going to post this afterwards. I'll keep up with the comments, and thank you, everybody. And now I should say that, but with my OBS option open. All right, take care.